Most people do not fail to build wealth because they are lazy. They fail because they keep obeying a financial script that feels responsible, mature, and even admirable, while quietly arranging their entire life to stay dependent on forces they do not control. The hidden reason is not effort. It is the way you have been trained to relate to safety. You can feel this even if you rarely say it out loud. You work, you try to stay sensible, you avoid obvious mistakes, and part of you still expects that steadiness should eventually create traction. Not riches overnight, just movement. Something that proves the discipline meant something. But for a lot of people, the longer they act this way, the more confused they become, because life keeps asking for more restraint while giving very little leverage back. And that confusion turns dangerous when you mistake endurance for strategy. That is where the split begins. Not between smart people and foolish people. Not between good people and selfish people. Between people who are building position and people who are preserving decency inside systems that do not reward it cleanly. Machiavelli understood this long before modern money talk turned into motivational wallpaper. Fortune, in his view, still mattered, but so did preparation, posture, and the ability to shape what chance can actually do with you. That idea is colder than most people prefer. It is also more useful. The first hidden reason you are not building wealth is that you may be using stability as a substitute for strategy. That sounds harsh until you look closely at how often stability becomes a psychological sedative. One salary, one identity, one reliable role at work, one version of yourself that other people already know how to use. It feels safe because it reduces uncertainty, but it also reduces exposure. Your life becomes efficient at surviving familiar conditions and fragile everywhere else. The hidden cost is not just that you miss a few opportunities. It is that your future now depends on one institution continuing to recognize your value in exactly the same way. Wealthy people do not necessarily live recklessly. They simply build more surfaces where value can land. More transferable skills, more rooms where their name travels ahead of them, more ways for one good break to become meaningful. The shift is severe. Stop asking whether your life feels secure and ask whether it is positioned. Those are not the same thing. The second hidden reason is that you may be consuming the feeling of progress before you have built the structure of progress. This one catches intelligent people all the time because it rarely looks stupid from the outside. A slightly better flat, better clothes, better habits of presentation, a cleaner aesthetic, more signals that life is moving. On the surface, that seems reasonable. You want your life to reflect your effort, but there is a quiet trap hidden in that instinct. When you start purchasing emotional proof too early, you weaken the machinery that could have created real freedom later. The wealthy are often unimpressive at the exact stage where their position is improving fastest because they are more attached to leverage than appearance. They can tolerate looking unfinished. Most people cannot. The mental shift here is brutal. If your lifestyle needs to reassure you before your finances are resilient, you are not building momentum. You are soothing doubt. And doubt is expensive when it learns how to dress well. The third hidden reason is identity lock. You may not be broke because your goals are too small. You may be broke because your self-image is too rigid. You know the type of person you believe yourself to be. Careful, sensible, specialized. Not the sort who takes odd turns, not the sort who asks too boldly, not the sort who steps into rooms where you have not yet been invited. That identity often feels like character. In practice, it can become a cage with excellent manners. Wealth tends to favor people who can expand their usefulness faster than they defend their old self-concept. That does not mean becoming fake. It means refusing to let one version of competence become permanent. The hidden cost of identity lock is that you end up loyal to a familiar self long after that self has stopped being economically adaptive. Wealthy people are often willing to become confusing before they become impressive. They let capability outrun biography. The shift is to stop asking whether a move fits the person you have been, and ask whether it fits the position you are trying to build. A lot of financial stagnation is just identity protection wearing the mask of prudence. Pause there and take a harder inventory than you normally allow yourself. Look at the opportunities you rejected, the skills you delayed, the introductions you never followed up on, the ideas you kept in private because they felt slightly exposing. Then ask a question that strips away the excuses very quickly. Were those decisions protecting your future or protecting your current identity from friction? That answer matters more than nearly any budget, because it tells you whether your caution has actually been wisdom or simply fear with good posture. The fourth hidden reason is that you may still believe effort has moral force in a system governed by incentives. This is one of the most painful recognitions because it forces you to let go of a story that made life feel fair enough to tolerate. Work hard, be useful, be loyal, keep your head down. Eventually the world notices. Sometimes it does, often it does not. Not because the world is evil in some dramatic sense, but because money moves toward leverage, clarity, scarcity, trust, timing, and advantage long before it moves toward virtue. If you expect clean compensation for sincerity, you will keep making emotionally honest choices in environments that are not organized around honesty. The wealthy are not always colder in temperament. They are simply less sentimental about what actually gets rewarded. They study behavior, not intention. They watch where power hesitates, where friction can be removed, where value is trapped, where other people are still negotiating with reality as though it should be nicer than it is. The shift is stark. Stop asking whether you deserve more and start asking whether your current position makes it easy for money, trust, or access to move toward you. Deserving is emotionally satisfying. Position is financially relevant. The fifth hidden reason is false intelligence. You may be using thoughtfulness to avoid asymmetry. A lot of smart people do this without realizing it. They analyze, compare, refine, hesitate, and keep waiting until the move makes complete sense. They call it discipline. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is an elegant way of avoiding situations where the upside is disproportionate and the downside is survivable. Wealth is often built through decisions that feel slightly asymmetrical long before they feel socially validated. A side project with one serious client can matter more than years of low-risk obedience. A relationship built with the right person can alter your trajectory more than another season of perfect performance in a closed system. A skill learned before it becomes fashionable can change your bargaining power without changing your title for months. The wealthy are not always bolder everywhere. Usually they are more conservative where loss can destroy them and more aggressive where loss is containable. That is a very different psychology. The shift is to stop worshiping certainty and start respecting disproportion. If a move can expand your ceiling while keeping your floor intact, your fear of looking foolish may be costing you more than the move itself. The sixth hidden reason is emotional impatience with invisible progress. This is where a lot of capable people quietly sabotage themselves and then tell themselves they were simply being discerning. You start something useful. It is slow, repetitive, unimpressive, no applause. No immediate evidence that your life is changing. Your self-respect begins to itch, so you pivot, you withdraw, you rename the discomfort as instinct and move on before the compounding begins to show. Wealthy people are often less reactive to time than everyone around them. They understand that the most important periods of progress are usually psychologically insulting. You do the work before your identity catches up. You endure dullness before authority appears. You repeat what works before it feels meaningful. Machiavelli wrote that people are ruined not only by force, but by misjudging the conditions they are living in. Time is one of those conditions. If you keep demanding visible reward at a pace that protects your ego, you will interrupt every process just before it becomes structurally useful. The shift is simple and uncomfortable. Stop measuring a strategy by how quickly it flatters you. Measure it by whether it is deepening your leverage. Once you see these patterns together, the hidden reason becomes harder to ignore. You are not merely told to work. You are taught to seek psychological relief in all the wrong places. relief in predictability, relief in looking successful, relief in staying consistent with an old identity, relief in believing effort should be enough, relief in overthinking until risk disappears, relief in quitting what does not validate you quickly. None of those instincts are irrational. Most of them were built to help you survive socially. But wealth does not belong to the version of you that only knows how to feel safe. It belongs to the version of you that can stay coherent while becoming strategically harder to corner. That is why this matters more than another piece of advice. Advice changes behavior for a week. Recognition changes the structure from which behavior comes. Once you understand that your financial ceiling is often psychological before it is numerical, you stop waiting for a better economy, a better manager, a better break, or a cleaner moment to begin. You start paying attention to where your life is narrow, where your identity is expensive, where your caution is decorative, where your patience is fake, and where your effort still carries a secret expectation of moral reward. That is not pessimism. That is the beginning of strategic sight. And once you have that sight, you are no longer the person this system was designed to pacify. You stop asking whether life will finally reward your sincerity and start arranging yourself so that chance, power, and value find more places to attach. You stop performing safety and start building position. You stop treating wealth like a prize for the deserving and start treating it like a pattern that recognizes certain forms of readiness. In the end, the people who rise are rarely the people fate loved most. They are the people who became too well placed for randomness to ignore.